To viewers, how are you? I thought I would talk about More Than a Dream, how it came to be, my visualization process. It started a long, long time ago. When I wrote this poem, More Than a Dream, I wrote it when I was in high school, many, many, many moons ago. I always wrote everything down when I was in high school. I kept a notebook, jotted down notes, poems, lyrics, stories, whenever I could. I loved literature in high school, art and music, and I still write today. But I always had this picture of my poem. It is a love poem after all, with a rose in it. So I did go out and take a picture of a rose. And when we were using typewriters back then, I typed up my poem. I added it with the picture and came up with this. As you can see, I always had the concept of a rose with more than a dream. And back then, we had stationery. Some of you may not know what stationery is, but I was really excited when you could go into the store and look at all the colors, graphics, and artwork on stationery. When you were typing back then, we had mostly a typewriter, and I would pick out these stationaries, and I would go through them and see which one looked the best. And I still always had this rose petals as an image for More Than a Dream. So I looked around and I found stationery with a rose and rose petals on it. And I typed it out. As you can see, it's still the same concept. A rose with rose petals. It is a love poem after all. Fast forward years and years and years later, I had the opportunity to create a video with just the right amount of roses and rose petals. In my visualization video for More Than a Dream, I wanted to share it with others that could feel some emotional connection. It's a love poem. And I think I got some likes, and I think I have some views. So people seem to like it. I hope you liked it. I hope it moved you. I look forward to creating more poems and poetry through my videos. And some people say you can't experience a poem unless you read it out loud in a club in front of a live audience, which I disagree. I think there's other ways that you can feel a poem, create a poem through video and words. And I hope to be bringing you part two on some interesting facts you may not have known about that poem or some of my poetry, some tidbits you might find interesting, I hope. Well, I just wanted to touch base with you and tell you a little bit about the behind the story of that poem. Welcome back. This is part two of More Than a Dream. I said I would be talking more about my poem, More Than a Dream, with some interesting tidbits and facts you may not have known. When I was writing in high school, I was just writing to get my emotions out on paper. When you're in high school, you're going through a lot of changes. And you couldn't always talk to your friends. They get sick of you after a while. So I would just keep a notebook and write everything down and read it later. And I felt a little better that I got it out. So I did a lot of research and I was kind of pursuing a singing career at this time. I was writing a lot of song lyrics. I was in concert choir in high school, and then I pursued singing lessons after high school with Dick Johnson's music school. I attended music school for like 3 years, studying voice. And then I was introduced to someone that was willing to create music and work with me. So I did that a little while, and I'd write a little bit of song lyrics, and he'd create the music. And he taught me how to actually copyright lyrics, and that got me thinking about my poetry and how I could copyright my poetry. So I did more research. I was always at the library. I love the library. It's a wealth of knowledge. So I asked around too, and they they kind of, you know, show me the right path to take when it came to researching and looking out for copyrights, what you had to do. There was a lot to it. So I sent away for that. And I figured the best of my poems I would probably have copyrighted. So that was the National Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. And you always had to pay something. So a little fee for, probably 20 years or so, or the life of the author, just like writing a book. You always have to have something, copywritten. That's back then when I was really starting out and I didn't know anything about it. And I always wanted to share my poetry, so I was pretty confident. I hadn't attended college yet, and I was still thinking about what I wanted to major in. And in the meantime, I was really writing a lot, a lot of poetry, a lot of song lyrics. And I just had this idea that I could maybe get all my poetry in one place to share with others, like my local library, which my friend she kind of maneuvered me into that direction. And I got in touch with a local news reporter for our town, and I had to write a little script on what my poetry exhibit was going to be about. So I guess I had about probably 30 to 50 poems on display, but I had a lot more, and a lot of them are personal. But I made my little display. I made a little cover letter. I had my headshot. I had all the things that you should do. Um, it was my first time really experiencing an exhibit. I had one of my poems on exhibit at the craft museum in another close town, and that was mostly an arts museum back then. And they were running a women's national exhibition month. And, I never really thought about sending my poetry to a art museum. But since it was Women's Month and they were looking for new artists, I think I just thought, well, what the heck, I might as well give it a shot. You won't know until you try. So I sent my first poem that I ever wrote, which was Along the Sea. I typed it, but they didn't want it typed. So then I had to write it out, and I sent that in, and they accepted it, and it was on display. And I remember bringing some of my family, my relatives, and wow, I was really feeling really good that I was able to share that with not only my family, but other people that appreciate poetry. And a few years after my exhibit at my local library, I was attending college and I was taking a media communications program. And I had this essay with like a show and tell that you had to do for, I think it was speech communications. So, me, I always try to go big, try to think outside the box, something different. So, I created this behind me and I added all my poetry to it, most of it, like a book. But I added lights. And again, I had, just a little bit of this and that. It was just so out of my comfort zone. And I guess when you don't know about something, you don't feel confident, you know? But the only way to get confidence is to go out and do it and try. And if you try and fail, well, at least you tried, right? And my motto is better to have tried and failed than never tried at all. So that's what I do. So that's some of the stuff that I did with my poetry. And now I have this opportunity to share it with others through these videos, which we've come a long way. Through AI, I try not to use AI. I try to be more authentic. I mean, some of the things maybe for holidays and graphics are really cool to do with AI, but for the most part, I like to just try to do it without using AI. So anyway, I'm trying to create another avenue for my poetry. I won't tell you about it yet. It's not set in stone. It's going to be another way for people to experience my art. And I hope this gave you some insight to more of what I'm about, what my poetry is about. I view it as art, and that's all I can do, and that's all I can say. Just, I'll just keep pushing myself to do better. And I hope you guys like what I do, like what I create. Let me know with the likes. Let me know with the views. And I thank you for viewing it. And I thank you for liking it. Thank you for your time. This is Karen Kuczynski, aka Cooch Pop, from Cooch Pop Art. Best wishes, always. See ya.